Hey everybody, this is JJ Johnson. You're watching Reality Survival. So today this is going to be just some quick highlights from 10 of what I think are my best videos that get into some really good survival information. These are just going to be highlights and clips taken from videos that I've done over the year. Now I have over 600 videos out there, or pretty close to 600 videos out there now. These are just some of the hand-picked ones that I think you guys will like. The links to the full videos will be in the description below, so you guys can check those out if you want. Thanks a bunch for watching.
Right now what I wanted to cover is 3 common mistakes in fire building. All right, and I'm going to show you how to rectify those mistakes, and I guarantee, if you follow these 3 tips and do this when you build a fire, you will have less problems building a fire, and you will build a fire more successfully, more often, with very few failures. Okay, a platform should be anything that is, you'd like to ideally have it about 12 inches by 12 inches if you can. So the next thing is having a brace. Now this is a brace. All right, it's about a forearm sized piece of wood. You're going to put it on your platform, and you're going to put it here right next to your tinder. And what this does is this allows you to keep the right amount of oxygen mixture so that your fire will burn at an optimal temperature and the best that it can. I recommend that you process your kindling and tinder ahead of time, and you should have at least 3 bundles of your smallest size kindling. Okay, so when I'm just talking about handful size, just like that. Have at least 3 handful sizes like that. And then what you're going to do is all at once just take it and flatten it out a little bit, slap it on the fire. Don't mess with it. Okay, it's good enough. You don't have to mess with it. It's going to start burning. That brace, if you notice, that brace is creating the perfect amount of oxygen so that you get plenty of flow, plenty of oxygen flow coming up from your fire. You'll never have to blow on a fire again if you light fires this way from now on. So then you take your next bundle and you throw it perpendicular to the first bundle. Okay? But as you can see, this is a very efficient way to start a fire. Okay? This will work in the wintertime, it will work in the rain, it will work at any point. It doesn't make any difference. Adding that brace in there, having a good platform, and putting your fuel, your kindling, all on in bundles. Just flatten it out, stick it on there in a big bundle, and it's going to grow very rapidly, just like this fire did. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and take a look at this shelter. This is, like I said, a typical representation of like an evasion type shelter that we used to teach in the survival school. And it incorporates the BLISS acronym for setting it up. So B is the first letter in the acronym, and that is blend. And you can see that this shelter blends into the local environment pretty well. We used a camouflage tarp, or an old poncho, a military style poncho. And we went ahead and added some leaves and some dirt and pine needles and sticks and all that kind of stuff up in there, and that helps it to blend in better. The next letter in BLISS is L, and that stands for low. So as you can see, this is low. It's below my waist in height, and it's just a couple of feet off the ground. So as people are scanning the horizon and that kind of thing, this is going to be down out of the way, and it's not going to be really noticeable. Okay guys, so I'm down here inside the shelter, and the way I've set this up is so that it can be taken down really quickly from the inside, and I don't have to get out of the shelter and walk around and all that kind of stuff. I've basically used about 6 to 8 foot lines. I've got 6 of them on one on each corner, and then one in the middle on the poncho, and I have tied those and attached those to the points out on the corners with a snow clove. So all I got to do is just basically pull on that, and I'm going to be able to pull that corner in. Then I can go, I've got the other one right here, and that's for that corner, and I've got the other one right here, and that's for the ridge line. And then I've done the same thing down by my feet. So I've got an exit down by my feet, and I can move out that way if I need to, and then I can move out right here as well. So I can go to either side of the tree depending on where the zombies come from. The thing with the Dakota hole fire is initially it was kind of designed for, I guess, like a combat type environment. It was adapted from the Indians, and we taught it in the U.S. Air Force Survival School as a way to build a fire that you could cover over quickly in case the enemy was close, and that also would leave very little evidence that you were there. Okay guys, so here is a look at what we've got started. Basically just two different holes. This will be the main hole here, and then this will be the air hole. And now what I've got to do is I have to get these holes connected. And one of the things you could do is, like, if you've got a knife with like an awl on it or something along those lines, because you need something fairly small, you get down there with your hand and you can kind of start to drill sideways over into the other hole. So that's how I'm going to connect those holes. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. So, well, luckily, pot fits pretty nicely right there on the hole. As you can see, you do still have some smoke. Take a look at our fire before we put our noodles on. As you can see, still going well. I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple of sticks while we got it up. Little chunks is all you need, about 4 inches long. You really don't want them too long, because they'll stick up, get in the way. Okay, so we got our ramen noodles to a nice little boil there, and now it's lunchtime. Now, when we look at this from above, as you can see, there is very little evidence that there was a fire there. Alright, so the first thing here is going to be to go ahead and prepare the fireboard. So I basically want that to be, you know, maybe a 1/2 inch thick or so, something along those lines. Don't want it too thick. Just kind of shaping it so it's going to sit level on me. I don't want it tipping around, all that. Pretty well flat on that side. Still take some more width off of this one. Down as you go. That's going to create your V to catch the coal dust. Now, as far as the spindle goes, basically, you know, I say you need maybe 12 inches, something along those lines. About thumb diameter. This is a little bit narrow. I'd like it if it was a little bit bigger, but it's what I got, so that's what I'm going to use. Alright, here we go. Get this to stay in. We're shooting for long, even strokes. Like we got a little coal going. Just kind of fold it around it. Let me get you a better angle here. This is the only time I recommend actually blowing on a fire. There we go. And there are essentially 5 basic needs that you need to address anytime that you're putting together any kind of survival kit or anything like that. And we're going to cover those 5 things today. So stick with me and we'll get going. These are going to be general characteristics that you could apply to any kit, from something as small as this to as big as a bug out bag or something along those lines. Okay, so the first consideration is medical. The reason that I put this as the first consideration is because statistically speaking, most wilderness survival type situations are a result of some sort of injury or something along those lines. You got hurt, you couldn't make it out on time, something like that. Now, personal protection is the next category. Now, personal protection can actually include quite a few things in its subcategories. Now, perhaps some of the first things that you guys are thinking about might be personal protection as far as a firearm or something along those lines. And you would be correct, that would be included in this category. Having a firearm, depending on the environment that you're going to or whatever, could be critically important. Maybe you're comfortable with just having, a fixed blade knife, or perhaps an EDC folder, or maybe even some pepper spray or something along those lines. It really is just going to depend, again, on your environment and what you need. In your traditional wilderness survival type situation, you're really going to be talking about personal protection as far as from the elements and from the weather. So you want to make sure that you might have some sort of material like an emergency tarp to be able to make a shelter, or perhaps just a cheap little survival blanket. The sustenance is the next category, and sustenance basically entails food and water. Water can be pretty easy to find in a lot of places, but unfortunately it's not safe to drink in many cases. So part of the things that you might want to consider in the water category could be something as simple as having a bottle of water purification tablets thrown in your kit, or maybe even a few of them wrapped up individually. MicroPure has got some individual packages that you can throw in, like in small survival kits, or perhaps it's going to be something that's a little bit bigger, like a survival straw, something along those lines, or maybe even like a Katadyn hiker, or a bigger pumped style water filter.
My name is Dr. Anya Whittington. I'm an Associate Professor of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism at Radford University. I also teach Wilderness First Aid and Wilderness First Responder for solo. And I serve on our local search and rescue team called Southwest Virginia Rescue Mountain Group.
If I was to drink this without treating it, it could lead to some very bad side effects. Let's talk about that.
When in the backcountry, it is important to stay well hydrated. On average, at rest, we need approximately 2 liters of water per day. When we are exercising, especially strenuously exercising, depending on the heat and the type of activity we're doing, we could need up to an additional 2 liters per hour. Over time, lack of water can lead to fatigue, exhaustion, and impact our ability and our endurance to accomplish whatever it is that we're participating in. One of the most effective ways of treating water in the backcountry is to boil your water. Boiling your water kills everything. You need to bring the water to a hard boil. No set amount of time, it just needs to come to a nice hard boil. Some places it may take longer in a higher elevation. One of the advantages of boiling water is that you only need fuel. The water tastes the same, which keeps the flavor. And typically you have the stuff with you already for cooking and other activities. The second method for treating water is using a filtration system. There's many different types out there. Filtration there's some advantages to filtering your water. You can stop anywhere along the trail and do it. It doesn't take a significant amount of time. Some of the disadvantages of filtration systems is that it does not remove viruses. They can be costly, and you typically have to replace the cartridge in the filtration system on a regular basis.
Hey everybody, this is JJ. And right now what I want to do is just give you a real quick urban survival or kind of evasive driving tip. what you want to do is when you stop, you want to make sure that you stop like this. All right, guys, so as I'm approaching the stop sign here, I'm going to bring the vehicle to a stop where I can still clearly see the tires of the vehicle in front of me hitting the pavement. If I do this in most vehicles, that's going to give me enough room that I can turn the wheel and pull around that vehicle, you know, without any problems. Another thing that's important, you know, when you're driving in critical situations, and really anytime, is to maintain situational awareness when the vehicle is stopped. Not only do you want to look in front of you, you also want to make sure that you're checking your mirrors, both the rearview mirror and the two side mirrors, and watching those blind spots, because that is very commonly where carjackers or somebody's going to do an ambush or whatever the case may be will approach from.
Hey everybody, this is JJ, and today what I'm going to talk to you about is one of the simplest methods to purify or make your water safe when you're drinking, you know, out in like a wilderness survival type situation, or perhaps even in a grid down scenario. What you do is you basically find a water bottle that is anywhere smaller than 3 liters, anything smaller than 3 liters. You don't want to get a container that is larger than that, because this method just doesn't really work that well with it, and it decreases its efficiency. So, you know, a 1 liter bottle like this is a smart water bottle, and this is just about the ideal size and the characteristics that you're looking for when you're going to use the SOTUS method. You want it to be clear. You also want it to be a PET bottle. And the way that you can find that out is by looking on the bottom of it, and you can find the recycling code, and it should say on there PETE or PET, and then there'll be a 1 inside of that triangle. The key factor here is that you have to have sunlight. You've got to have sunlight, and it has to have sunlight for 6 continuous hours. Now, the general rule on how to decide how long to leave something out, like let's say if it's cloudy out, right? You didn't have a clear sun all day. Basically, they say if there is clouds in it, more than half of the sky is covered in clouds, then you want to leave it out for 2 days. You want to let it sit out and you know, basically let all the bacteria and viruses and everything get killed. Leave it out there for 2 days. If there's less than half of the sky that's covered in clouds, then the 6 hours will do it. The other thing is you want to make sure that you filter, you pre-filter the water if possible, because you don't want the water to have a lot of turbidity. And essentially the way that this works is it's the sun's ultraviolet rays, the UVA rays, are what kills the bacteria, the protozoa, and all the, you know, diarrhea-causing agents that are in the water.
So today, the first video in the series is going to be about road crossings. If you are in a escape and evasion situation, for whatever the reason may be, and you are going to be forced to cross a road, then you need to realize that this is one of the most potentially dangerous you know, circumstances that you're going to be in. Road crossings are really dangerous, and for somebody who is trying to evade. And the reason for that is that people are lazy, right? And the vast majority of people who search for other people who are trying to not be found would prefer to stay in their vehicle and be able to search from the vehicle or look alongside the road, look for signs and evidence that the, you know, people have crossed there, and then pick up their trail and go. So the first thing that you want to do when you get ready to cross a road, as you're coming through the woods and you see a road, as we've got a road in our background here, you want to stop and observe if it's reasonable for you to do so. Now clearly if somebody is right on your tail, then you don't have the opportunity to do that, okay? The next thing is when you approach the road, you want to start being a lot more cognizant of your tracks, and you know, making sure that you're replacing vegetation, making sure that you're trying not to step in mud puddles and things like that. They're going to leave really hard imprint tracks. Try to stay to more solid ground. You can even wrap your feet in cloth and stuff like that. I'll show you that in a different video. There's a lot of things you can do to kind of reduce your sign as you're approaching the road. Again, the reason you want to do that is because
if they catch your sign from crossing the road, they're gonna go back and try to backtrack or look on each side of it to identify your trail. Okay, so once you've got up to your road, ideally what you'd like to do is you'd like to find a curve in the road. As you can see, the road over here curves off down and to the right, and then when I look this way, it curves off down around that way as well. And the reason that you want to do that is because when you expose yourself on the road, if you're in the inside of a curve, then an observation vehicle or somebody, you know, searching for you is not going to be able to see you from a very far distance away.
Hey everybody, this is JJ, and this is going to be a real quick lesson on how to read contour lines. Okay, so essentially contour lines basically measure the distance from sea level. They measure elevation, but their shape also gives you an indication of what kind of terrain feature you're looking at. Now there are three different kinds of contour lines. You have the index contour line, which as you see in this picture here has the elevation marked on it. Then you have what is the most common that you'll see the most of is the intermediate contour lines, and those are not labeled. And then you'll have the dotted supplementary lines. Now supplementary lines are generally only used when you have kind of a flat elevation. Okay, so contour lines, as you can see in this picture here, are basically what enables you to determine elevation. When you're looking at a 3D object like the hills on the top, you can see how you can read that in a 2D form down at the bottom. Okay, this is a representation of a peak. You've got a side view on the top, and then you have what it might look like on a map down at the bottom. And if you notice where on the bottom where that little triangle is, that is the center of the peak. Now, what denotes the actual peak is the smallest enclosed circle on that picture that does not have any other contour lines inside of it, and that smallest circle is what's going to tell you that's the very top of the peak. Okay, so the distance between contour lines also gives you some indication of what kind of terrain you're looking at. The next thing we need to look at is how to identify a ridge or a spur. And the way you do that is when you see, if you notice in this picture where the two arrows are pointing, that is a ridge or a spur. And you can identify these on contour lines because the contour line starts to U or V, kind of make a U or a V shape, where the bottom of the V or the U is pointing away from the peak. Okay, so if we put this all together and we look at a real topographical map, you should be able to start to pick out some terrain features based on the stuff that we just went over. And as you can see right there by the word mount on the picture you got above you, that is a peak, and then off to the left is a very steep hill going down it. And then going over towards the numbers 283 at the top of the page, you can see a ridge line going down there. And you know, the only way to really get good at this is to spend time looking at your topographical map.